My world shattered into a million irreparable pieces the day two stern-faced FBI agents stood on my pristine San Diego doorstep. Their presence announcing that my wife, Serena, had been living a secret life meticulously funded by the systematic theft of my own father's identity. The carefully curated perfection of our suburban existence, the manicured lawn, the freshly painted white picket fence, the hybrid SUV in the driveway, instantly transformed into a grotesque parody, a hollow stage set for a crime I never saw coming. For a decade, I, Mark, had believed I was living the dream. Serena was not just my wife. She was my partner, my confidant, and above all, an unbelievably devoted mother to our bright-eyed 7-year-old daughter, Lily. She was the architect of our family's happiness, the one who remembered every teacher's name, baked cupcakes for every school event, and could turn our home into a warm, inviting sanctuary with seemingly effortless grace. As a civil engineer, I poured myself into my work, often logging long hours to provide the stable, comfortable life I thought they deserved, comforted by the knowledge that our home front was in the most capable hands imaginable. I truly believe we were an unshakable team, a united front against the world's chaos. The first distant rumble of the coming earthquake wasn't a deafening crash, but a faint, confusing tremor. It came in the form of a phone call from my dad, his voice, usually so steady and calm, tinged with bewildered anxiety. "Mark, there's something off with my credit card statement," he'd said, the line crackling with his unease. He detailed a series of baffling purchases: a luxury men's watch from a boutique he'd never heard of, first-class airline tickets to Tokyo, a staggering bill from a high-end spa in Napa Valley. My initial reaction was a modern-day shrug. We were all victims of the digital age. "It's just fraud, Dad," I reassured him, feeling competent and helpful. "We'll report it, cancel the card, and it'll be sorted. The bank will handle it." We went through the motions, filed the reports, and I put it out of my mind, chalking it up to the cost of living in a connected world. Our shared assumption was a simple case of a skim card number. We were hopelessly, tragically naive. The reality that revealed itself weeks later was not a simple tremor, but a full-scale seismic event that opened a chasm right through the center of my life. We discovered it wasn't just one compromised credit card. Serena, with a chilling, methodical patience, had used the intimate personal information she collected over a decade of family holidays, birthdays, and casual Sunday dinners, my father's social security number, his date of birth, his mother's maiden name, to construct an entire shadow life. She had opened multiple lines of credit, taken out substantial personal loans, and, most shockingly, secured a second mortgage on a condominium in a nearby beach town, all in my father's name. The total sum was not just alarming. It was soul-crushing, climbing into the high six figures. The involvement of the FBI meant this was no longer a private family matter or a civil dispute. It was a serious federal criminal case, and my wife was the prime suspect. I will never forget the surreal, out-of-body experience of coming home from a routine day at work to find those two agents waiting for me. Serena was already in the living room, her face a mask of porcelain pallor, all the color drained away. They presented their evidence with a detached professionalism that made the situation even more horrifying. The thick stack of documents detailed a double life of breathtaking audacity. Transactions from designer boutiques I knew she couldn't afford on her allowance, receipts for lavish spa weekends she told me were girls' trips, and cryptic bank transfers to accounts whose owners I couldn't begin to fathom. They read her rights there, in our cozy living room, surrounded by family photos and Lily's artwork on the fridge. The metallic click of the handcuffs around her wrists was the most deafening sound I had ever heard. They let her out of the house as my little girl slept soundly upstairs, her world still intact, blissfully unaware that her mother was a felon and the foundation of her life had just been vaporized. The silence that descended after the door closed was heavier than any noise, a physical pressure threatening to crush me. The betrayal was a corrosive acid eating away at everything I thought was real. This was the woman I shared a bed with, the woman I trusted implicitly with our daughter's life, our financial future, our shared dreams. She had sat across from my father at countless Sunday dinners, laughing at his jokes, asking about his golf game, all the while knowing she was systematically dismantling his financial stability and obliterating his trust. The cognitive dissonance was paralyzing. When I finally received the full, unvarnished story from the lead investigator, a man named Agent Miller, whose face seemed permanently set in a grimace of weary disappointment. Any lingering love I had for Serena evaporated. It was replaced by a cold, hard knot of fury and a singular focus, protecting my daughter from fallout. Her court appearances were a special kind of torture. She initially pleaded not guilty, a move that felt like a fresh insult, but the mountain of evidence was simply insurmountable. After weeks of legal maneuvering, her court-appointed lawyer worked out a plea deal. She stood before the judge, looking small and frail in her ill-fitting suit, and pleaded guilty to aggravated identity theft and wire fraud. In exchange for her full cooperation in untangling the financial web she'd woven and a commitment to restitution, she received a reduced sentence of 18 months in a minimum security prison, with the likelihood of serving only 12 with good behavior. My father, a kind and gentle retired school teacher, was utterly devastated. The financial ruin was one thing, but the emotional toll was far worse. He was a man who trusted deeply, and this betrayal broke something fundamental in him. He would sit in my kitchen, his hands shaking around a cup of coffee, and ask the same unanswerable question. Why, Mark? What did I ever do to make her hate me so much? I had no answers for him. My first and most important battle was for Lily. I hired the best family lawyer I could afford and fought for, and was granted full physical and legal custody. Serena begged me during a strained, hushed conversation in a courthouse hallway, her voice cracking with sobs. Please, Mark, don't do this to me. She's my daughter. I need her. I'm still a good mom, she cried, her hands gripping my arms. But my resolve was hardened. How could she possibly be a good mom when her actions had guaranteed she would be absent for the most formative years of her child's life? The judge, a no-nonsense woman with tired eyes, was unmoved by Serena's tears. She saw the facts, a convicted felon who had committed a profound breach of trust against her own family. She granted only strictly supervised visitation, to be reassessed upon Serena's release. It was a victory that felt like a defeat. I hadn't wanted to become a single father. I had wanted to save the family I thought I had. The year that followed was a brutal marathon of sheer survival. Juggling the demands of my high-pressure job with the all-consuming responsibilities of single parenthood was a Herculean task. My career suffered as I had to leave early for pickups, take days off for sick calls, and manage my energy between complex engineering projects and the intricate social dynamics of a first-grade classroom. The endless paperwork from the lawyers, the banks, and the probation office was a constant, nagging reminder of the chaos. Lily missed her mother terribly. She was too young to understand the concept of prison, so we settled on a fragile, half-true story that Mommy had to go away to a special school for a while to learn some important things. It was a pathetic shield against a truth too harsh for her to bear. True to my word, I allowed Serena to call every night, and I diligently drove a often carsick Lily to the bleak institutional visitation center every other weekend. Watching them together during those 2-hour windows was a unique agony. Serena was, in those controlled moments, aside from being a felon, a good and loving mother. She was present, engaged, and affectionate. It confused Lily profoundly and tortured me with a complex mix of anger, pity, and resentment. Then, a lifeline appeared from an unexpected direction. An old college friend, aware of my situation to the grapevine, reached out about a senior project manager position at his rapidly growing firm in Austin, Texas. The salary offer was a staggering jump, nearly double my current income, and the company was renowned for a progressive culture, incredible benefits, and, most importantly, its on-site childcare and family wellness programs. It was more than a new job. It was a chance for a true, definitive fresh start. It was an opportunity to rip Lily away from the whispering currents of our San Diego neighborhood, where the story had inevitably leaked, and people would look at us with a mixture of pity and morbid curiosity at the grocery store. Lily was starting to get awkward questions from other children on the playground, questions about jail and bad guys that she couldn't process or answer. I discussed the offer at length with my lawyer. While I had full custody, relocating across state lines was a significant legal hurdle. I had to file a formal petition with the court and provide Serena with formal notice, giving her the opportunity to object. I knew it would trigger a nuclear response. I chose to tell her over one of our already strained nightly phone calls. As predicted, she detonated. "You can't just take my daughter away from me. I'm getting my life together for her. This is my only chance to be her mother again. I'll fight you on this until I have nothing left," she screamed, her voice raw with a panic that was almost palpable. Her anger was predictable storm, but its ferocity still rattled me to my core. I proceeded anyway, my mind set on the future. My lawyer filed the formal relocation petition. The court hearing was a brutal, emotional spectacle. Serena, now out on parole, stood before the judge and pleaded her case with a desperate eloquence. She spoke of her rehabilitation, her humble new job as a receptionist at a dental office, her intensive therapy, and the fragile but slowly rebuilding bond she shared with Lily during their visits. She cried, her voice breaking convincingly, claiming I was deliberately alienating her and trying to erase her from our daughter's life forever. But my lawyer was impeccably prepared. He calmly outlined the tangible benefits: the superior school districts in Austin, the significantly higher quality of life my new salary could provide, the invaluable on-site childcare, and most damningly for Serena's case, he presented evidence of the social stigma Lily was already facing in her current environment due to the notoriety of her mother's crime. The judge, after a long contemplative silence, granted the relocation. The gavel's crack was final. The sound that escaped Serena's lips, a gut-wrenching sob of utter despair and defeat, was a sound I knew would haunt me for the rest of my days. In that moment, holding the legal paperwork that was my ticket to freedom, I felt like the most monstrous villain in the world. The move itself was a chaotic whirlwind of cardboard boxes, goodbyes, and a long, cross-country drive filled with children's music and my own silent anxiety. Austin was a revelation, vibrant, welcoming, and utterly different from the judgmental atmosphere we'd left behind. Lily was instantly captivated by her new, bigger backyard with its giant oak tree, perfect for climbing, and her new preschool, which was bright, modern, and full of friendly faces. I started my new job and was immediately immersed in challenging, engaging work. For the first time in over a year, I felt a sense of professional purpose and momentum. We began painstakingly building a new, stable routine. I found a highly recommended family therapist for us, a crucial step that had been a luxury I couldn't have afforded or found the time for in my previous life. Against all odds, a fragile sense of hope began to blossom. True to my word, I became the diligent facilitator of Serena's relationship with Lily. We instituted long, detailed video calls every few days. I became a constant paparazzo, sending a steady stream of photos and videos of Lily's daily life. Her first day at school, her artwork, her riding a bike without training wheels. I even formally offered, through my lawyer, to pay for Serena's flight to Austin for a visit once she received the mandatory approval from her parole officer, though I knew her financial situation and parole restrictions made it nearly impossible. For a few months, it was tense but manageable, a fragile détente held together for the sake of a little girl. Then the holiday season approached, its festive cheer feeling like a looming threat. I knew the first major holiday, Thanksgiving, would be an emotional minefield. Wanting to do the right thing, I went all out. I booked us round-trip flights back to San Diego. We spent a long 4-day weekend there, and I even orchestrated a carefully supervised Thanksgiving dinner at my parents' house, with Serena as an invited guest. The atmosphere was thick with unspoken tension and a forced, brutal civility, but we managed it for Lily's sake, who was overjoyed to have both her parents and grandparents in one room. After the pie was served and Lily was distracted with a movie, I pulled Serena aside into my old childhood bedroom for a private conversation. "Look, Serena," I began, choosing my word with extreme care. With the winter flight prices being astronomical and the fact that we just made this exhausting trip, I think it's wisest and most practical for us to spend Christmas in Austin this year. It's our first one in our new home, but we'll do a long, special video call on Christmas morning. You'll have a front row seat. You can watch Lily open every single present you sent her. And we can absolutely plan a bigger, longer visit for spring break, when the weather is better and travel is easier. She did not take it well. Her face, which had been softened by the wine and the family gathering, instantly hardened into a mask of bitter resentment. "So that's the grand plan, is it?" she hissed, her voice low and venomous, try and keep it down so our parents wouldn't hear. You get to just swoop in, take her, create your perfect little shiny new life in Texas. And I get what? A grainy, lagging video call on the most important, magical day of the year? You're deliberately isolating her from me, Mark. You're surgically cutting me out of her life, and you're using geography to do it. I just spent a small fortune and drove a 4-year-old across the country and back, so you could have a full Thanksgiving with her. I reminded her my own patience wearing dangerously thin. This isn't a personal attack, and it's not up for debate. It's a logistics and financial decision. We'll see you in the spring. That's the plan. The weeks leading up to Christmas were a masterclass in emotional warfare. My phone was flooded with guilt-tripping texts and manipulative, tearful voice messages. The calls to Lily became more frequent and more pointed, filled with not-so-subtle phrases about how Mommy's heart is breaking because she misses you so much, and Christmas won't be Christmas without you here. She was weaponizing her sadness, and it was agonizing to watch Lily try to process it. On Christmas Eve, we did our scheduled video call. Serena was quiet, withdrawn, and palpably sad. She said she understood the decision, but her eyes, staring out from the screen, were full of blame so potent I could almost feel it through the internet connection. I confirmed we would call her again at 9 a.m. sharp on Christmas morning. Christmas morning arrived in a whirlwind of wrapping paper, excited squeals, and the smell of cinnamon rolls baking. Lily was a bundle of pure, unadulterated joy. At 9 a.m. on the dot, I propped up the tablet and called Serena. It rang, and rang, and rang. No answer. Puzzled. I tried again 30 minutes later, after Lily had opened a particularly exciting gift. Straight to voicemail. A cold, not a suspicion formed in my stomach, but I pushed it down. Maybe she was too upset. Maybe she'd turned her phone off. Maybe she'd gone to a friend's to avoid being alone. It was hurtful for Lily, who asked about her mom a few times. But we carried on with our day, building elaborate Lego castles and watching classic holiday cartoons, the mystery of the missed call lingering in the back of my mind. Then, around 5 p.m., as I was in the kitchen, up to my elbows in potato peels and prepping our Christmas dinner, the doorbell rang. Lily sprinted to the door, yelling, "Daddy, Daddy." Maybe it's Santa coming back for cookies. I wiped my hands on a towel, smiling at her excitement, and opened the door. My smile froze and died on my lips. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. It was Serena, standing on my porch in Austin, Texas, a light dusting of travel dust on her worn suitcase, a wrapped present in her hand, and a wide, forced, desperately bright smile on her face. "Mommy," Lily shrieked, the sound ear-piercing with disbelief and delight, and she launched herself into her mother's arms. I was frozen solid, my brain refusing to process the scene. What in the absolute hell was she doing here? How did she get here? She looked over Lily's head, her eyes meeting mine, and her expression was a chaotic mix of defiant victory and sheer, unadulterated desperation. I couldn't do it," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "I couldn't spend Christmas without her. I couldn't just watch on a screen." After the initial shock began to recede, replaced by a boiling anger, and after Lily had dragged Serena through every room of the house to show off every single new toy and every corner of her new life, I managed to pull Serena into the kitchen, away from little ears. "Are you completely out of your mind?" I whisper harshly, my voice tight with rage. "You can't just show up unannounced, uninvited. This is a massive violation. How did you even get here?" "I drove," she said, as if it were the most normal thing in the world. "It's a long, lonely drive. Took me almost 2 days." A cold dread, colder than the winter air outside, settled in the pit of my stomach. The most important question remained. I leaned in closer, my voice dropping to an almost inaudible level. "Serena, look at me. Did you get permission from your parole officer to leave the state of California?" She avoided my gaze, focusing on a knot in the wooden kitchen table. She waved a hand in a dismissive gesture that felt horrifically flippant. "Of course I did. Don't worry about it. I handled it." I didn't believe her, not for a single second. Every instinct screamed that she was lying. But it was Christmas. Lily was radiating a happiness I hadn't seen in her since before the arrest. Serena had clearly driven for days and had nowhere else to go. In a moment of catastrophic misjudgment, fueled by the holiday spirit and a desire to avoid a scene that would traumatize my daughter, I relented. Against every screaming fiber of my being, I let her stay in the guest room that night. The next morning, after a tense and quiet breakfast, she left, promising Lily she'd see her very soon. The moment her rental car disappeared around the corner, I walked straight to my home office, sat down at my computer, and composed a brief, factual email to her parole officer. I stated the facts clearly. My ex-wife, a parolee under their supervision, had unexpectedly arrived at my residence in Texas on Christmas Day. I was simply writing to confirm that she had indeed received the proper authorization for this interstate travel, as I wanted to ensure all legal protocols were being followed. I didn't hear back for over a week, the silence stretching through the New Year holiday. When the reply finally landed in my inbox, it was polite and professional. The officer thanked me for my email and confirmed my darkest suspicion. Serena had not requested, nor had she been granted, permission to travel. She had willfully and knowingly violated a core term of her parole. A few days later, my phone erupted. It was Serena, and she was hysterical, her voice shredded with panic and pure, unadulterated rage. "You unbelievable asshole," she screamed, the words slamming into my ear. "You ratted me out to my P.O. You narc. I could go back to jail for this. Was this your plan all along, you sick bastard? To lure me out here and then get me locked up again so you can have Lily all to yourself forever? To finally win?" I was silent for a long moment, letting her torrent of fury and fear wash over me. I had never, ever intended for her to go back to jail. My goal had been purely about truth and self-preservation. I needed to know if she was lying to me yet again, and I needed a paper trail to protect myself and my daughter from her reckless and unpredictable behavior. But as I listened to the raw, animal panic in her voice, a sharp, undeniable pang of guilt lanced through me. I had known, on some level, what the likely consequences would be when I clicked send on that email. I had made a calculated decision. I was protecting my household, Serena. I said, my voice unerringly calm compared to her storm. "You showed up uninvited and, as it turns out, illegally. You lied to my face, again, in my own home. I had a right and a responsibility to know if you were telling the truth. Your choices have consequences. You should have told me the truth from the beginning, or better yet, you should never have come." She called me every name in the book, her voice cracking with tears and rage, before hanging up on me with a final, deafening crash. I sat there in the ensuing silence, the phone growing warm in my hand, wrestling with the moral ambiguity of my actions. Did proactively contacting her probation officer make me the villain in this story? A cold, calculating snake who used the letter of the law to punish the mother of his child? Or was I simply a father, finally drawing a firm, unbreachable boundary in the chaotic, devastating aftermath of destruction that she herself had single-handedly wrought? I looked up from my thoughts and saw Lily in the living room, playing peacefully with her new Christmas toys, her small face of pictured contentment, utterly oblivious to the brutal war her parents were waging over her. And in that moment, I knew with a cold certainty that I would do the exact same thing again to preserve the hard-won, fragile peace of our new life. The cost of that peace, however, a cost measured in guilt, moral compromise, and the potential of the mother return to prison, was a bill whose final total was yet to be fully paid.